It is an honor to help lead Michigan's Children, an organization that has been fighting for Michigan's children. It is an honor to help lead Michigan's Children, an organization that has been fighting for children and families in Michigan for over 20 years. With your continued support, we will continue to lead that fight for the next 24 years and realize our goal of truly making Michigan a great place to raise a family and to be a child. That was quick.
That's fine.
It's fine?
That's fine because
Okay.
we nailed it and it's fine. And, this is, if we don't need it.
I won't use it.
So you want me to start, or what do you want me to do?
I'll start by spelling your first and last name, and then who you are.
So my name is Marietta Daniel Eccles, M-A-R-I-J-A-T-A, Daniel, D-A-N-I-E-L hyphen E-C-H-O-L-S. And I am the Chief Executive Officer of the Early Childhood Investment Corporation.
Okay, good.
Marietta, could you please tell us about the work that you've done in conjunction with Michigan's Children?
So the Early Childhood Investment Corporation and Michigan's Children have been partners for quite a while. In my tenure at the Early Childhood Investment Corporation, I have worked with Michigan's Children, in particular in the 0 to 3 space, and working together to bring stakeholders from across the state to attend some informational sessions on a range of issues for infants and toddlers like child care and home visiting and early on. We've worked with Michigan's Children and the Early On Foundation to do some work essentially advertising the need for early intervention in the state. And we've done some work with Michigan's Children, just generally making sure that we are working together to understand the issues facing Michigan's young children, finding ways to partner together to strategically think about moving different agendas forward, or making sure that policymakers understand the implications of some of their early childhood ideas and policies and positions.
As a partner, how has Michigan's Children added value to the work that you've been able to do? And certainly feel free to answer that either from an advocacy perspective, since Michigan's Children does do advocacy work, and Early Childhood Investment Corporation is not in that realm, so to speak, but how partnering with Michigan's Children has made a difference in the policy work and the advocacy work on these very important issues, including early on, which has gotten so much attention lately.
One of the things that I have appreciated with working with Michigan's Children is that the folks there are very, very passionate about their work, but they're also very knowledgeable. So in terms of staying on top of what is the current debate in early childhood, what are the policies, what are the implications, where does it show up in the budget, all of those things, they're always on top of it. And so as a partner in the work in early childhood space, it really makes a difference to have people who are dedicated to advocacy, really good at what they do, kind of energized by it, and can then partner with folks like the Early Childhood Investment Corporation, who are not in that same advocacy space in the same way, but are doing work that can inform those policy positions. So it's a nice combination of doing the work and implementing some of the programs and having some content expertise that can be partnered with other folks who also understand early childhood content, but are passionate and really good on the advocacy side.
Thank you. Is there anything else that you'd like to tell us about working with Michigan's Children, or maybe even more specifically, more about where Michigan is in the whole early on concerns today? Because certainly the Flint crisis has brought attention to the needs of these early intervention programs, but as a state, we have not been investing in this federally funded program, so to speak. So, and I'm getting kind of long-winded, but let's talk a little bit more about early on, why it's been important to partner with us to work on early on for children and families today in the climate that we're in and the challenges that so many of these young families face.
Well, there's a couple things about early on. When I first started talking with Matt and Mina at the Michigan's Children about this issue, it was before the Flint water crisis, but it was still a crisis in the state because the program is underfunded and there's lots of families who could use early on services, but they're just not available in their part of the state. And so working with them to be able to try and find ways to bring that message to the state, and frankly in a climate where it wasn't always easy to talk about early on because you're talking about more money and policy changes and kind of logistics of how to make that happen. But that was something that Michigan's Children was talking about even before the Flint water crisis, where it just raised the profile of how being able to serve children and families very early in their development, and especially if they've been exposed to environmental hazards, matters. And I've really appreciated how Michigan's Children has been not afraid to take on challenging issues, has been willing to point out how different aspects of the Flint water crisis and investments in early on have implications for communities, have beyond early childhood, but for the entire community. And so their willingness to take a stand when other folks were not sure if they wanted to or not sure which way the political wind was blowing, I appreciate that. And it's one of the strengths that they bring to the work, kind of an unwavering commitment to pursuing policies that make a difference.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Is there anything I didn't ask you that you'd like to talk about?
Nope. Give them money. No. That's what you really want us to say, right?
Yeah, exactly. Let's keep that in the tape.
Okay.
That's a good way to
Right.
end it. Okay. Michelle, would you identify yourself and spell your name?
Your first and last name and who you represent.
Okay, Michelle Nicholson, Michellenicolson. I'm the Director of Early Childhood Services at Ingham Intermediate School District and also the co-coordinator of Ingham Great Start Collaborative.
Michelle, can you tell us a little bit about the work that you've done with Michigan's Children, some of those key issue areas that you've collaboratively worked together on?
Yes, we have really utilized the budget basics that Michigan's Children provides. It's really helped our organization and our programs understand what's happening with the state budget on a regular basis and the impact that it has on children and families. It helps us talk to families about things they might want to be aware of in terms of the impact on their situation, what's happening with any of the budget pieces. And then we have also worked very closely on advocating for early on. So one of the programs that I supervise is the Early On program. And we have one of the largest programs in the state. Our state has not provided any state funding towards Early On. And we see about 1,000 families, 1,000 children a year who potentially have developmental delays and disabilities. And with Michigan Children Help, we have been able to use some of the policy analysis that they've provided to understand some of those pieces about the funding, think about how we can strategically talk to policymakers about early on, the benefits of it, the funding issues, be a little more strategic. So if we were to approach this just from a local level, we could go about it in one way, and that may have some impact, but I think when we can partner with an entity like Michigan's Children that works across the state and works very closely with policymakers, then we can have more of a united front, more of a critical mass in how we talk about things and advocate for funding and policy changes that might be necessary.
Could you just highlight for those who are not so familiar with early on how that program has helped children with developmental disabilities and why it's important for us to know about today.
Sure. Early on serves children birth to 3 who have established conditions that lead to developmental delays or who are experiencing some developmental delays. And I know for our local program, about 2/3 of the children, if they've been in early on, do not go on to need special education services. And so it is both, from my perspective, preventative and provides intervention because we're getting services to children early where it can have a real impact on their development and potentially change the trajectory of their development moving forward. Many families do not have adequate insurance that could cover the services that they might need ongoing to address the developmental issues. And we work closely with families in their homes so that they know how to carry over any of the strategies that we're showing them on a daily basis to really impact their child's development.
No, that's fine. And tell me about, you've also worked recently with Michigan's Children on helping to disseminate information about the Kids Count report. And could you talk a little bit about how you work together to do that?
Yes, so when Kids Count data was released, we took a look at what our local data looked like, felt it was very important for other people in our community to know about it and the impact the data represents on our families and children. And we partnered with Michigan's Children and a couple of other organizations to do a press event so that we could bring together not only the data, but the policy implications, again, how it might impact early on specifically. We know from our local data that many of the families who are living in poverty or very low income actually have both parents working, but the employment that they have is not sufficient to meet their everyday needs. So it's really important, I think, for the general public to know that we're not talking about families who just sit home all day every day, that they're families who are working very hard to try to get food on their table, to have a roof over their head, and still meet the needs that their children have. Childcare is very difficult for many families to pay for, especially if they're making minimum wage. So having a press event where we could really highlight some of those things we felt was really important for the community. Michigan's Children was able to provide more the state level perspective, again, some of the policy analysis for us, and some of the budget analysis and potential impacts.
If there wasn't a group like Michigan's Children in place to help offer some of this analysis of data and budget policy implications, would that make it more difficult for you to do your job and to try to engage the public in what you're doing?
Yes, I think most of the people in my organization are providing direct services, and that is our focus and our mission is to provide services to children and families. We don't have the time or resources to do the research we might need to do to understand some of the policies, nor necessarily the expertise, even if we had the time to know the implications that different policies might have. Also being able to stay on top of what's happening on a daily basis with the legislature, particularly during the budget cycle, to know how those various changes could impact families and children in our organizations. So it's not an expertise that we have, nor is it something that we're funded to do, and so we do rely pretty heavily on Michigan's Children for that expertise and to help guide us to do our work.
Thank you, Michelle. Is there something I didn't ask you that you'd like to tell us about working with Michigan's Children, or some of the key folks at Michigan's Children that you've directly worked with over the years? And
Do you want me to mention names, or
yeah,
should I not
that would be
mention?
fine.
That's what I wasn't sure. So.
Yeah, no, thank you for asking. I
Okay.
appreciate that.
All right. So I've had a lot of experience over a number of years working with Michelle Corey and with Mina Hong, particularly around Kids Count. So again, helping understand the data, how we might use it, to explain the data and the importance of it to the general public and to our families. I feel that anytime I've reached out to Michigan's Children, they've been very responsive. So whether it's to provide a resource, just to have a conversation to help me understand something a little bit better, to come and meet with us, to help us think strategically about how we want to advocate for something or work on something locally and be in tandem with what's happening at the state level, they've been very responsive. I think it's been a real plus to have Matt Gillard in the position at Michigan's Children because of his legislative background. So he has a good understanding of the dynamics and can help someone like me who does not do that on a daily basis better navigate the system.
Thank you. No, that
Sure.
was great.
Okay.
Thank you for that.
Thank you.
What do you think, Lauren?
Yeah, that was really nice.
Okay.
Yep,
You
that's
can
all.
edit out all my little.
Oh, no, it's, Mike, would you mind telling us your first and last name and spelling it for us, please?
Michael Foley, Michaelfoley.
And your title and what you do.
I'm the Executive Director of the Michigan Children's Trust Fund.
Could you tell us about your history working with Michigan's Children, just in what areas you work together and how that's worked out for mutually beneficial benefits?
You know, my history with the Michigan's Children goes back to the inception of Michigan's Children when it was created in the 90s. And at the time, I was the director of an organization called Children's Charter of the Courts. And I was so happy to see Michigan's Children come on board because they were going to be, and they are today, a true independent voice for children's issues in the state. There were so many of us that had a role in that, but to be that true independent voice was something that we were really missing. And that's why Michigan's Children was created, and it remains true to that mission to this day.
Thank you. In what areas do you work together today? I know we're co-leaders. in
Well,
a very important program.
Yes, currently at the Michigan Children's Trust Fund, we are the co-chapter with Michigan's Children for Prevent Child Abuse Michigan. And there are a variety of roles and responsibilities with that responsibility of being the state chapter. And the piece of it that Michigan's Children does so well in that relationship is the advocacy and the public policy work. It's a crucial piece of being a chapter. And because, again, they are an independent voice, they are able to go over and speak to the legislature about our issues. When you think about child welfare, there's a continuum that really starts with prevention. The other aspects of it having to do with child abuse and neglect is that when families come before the child welfare system, the first hope is family preservation. And if that can happen and kids are placed in foster care, then the next real goal is reunification, to get those kids back with their families. And then when that doesn't work, it's an alternative permanency planning opportunity for kids. But moving back, the very beginning and very crucial part of that whole child welfare system is prevention. And not everyone appreciates how important that piece is and how valuable that's fundamental, high quality prevention service throughout the state is critical to that continuum of services. And Michigan's Children gets that. They do the advocacy at the state level. They are a voice for prevention dollars. It's the piece of the resources that often gets lost when dollars are tight. And Michigan's Children has just done a phenomenal job of being a voice for prevention in the legislative and public policy process.
What are some of the, you mentioned the qualities that Michigan's Children has, that it's a phenomenal voice for children. What is it about, can you detail a little bit about the work that they do and how they do it? So to describe for us how they're able to be effective.
Well, when I think of the effectiveness of Michigan Children, one of the things that comes to mind is just the work that they do when the budget is being finalized, and the budget pieces that they put out in very clear and concise detail as to what's being covered in children's issues. They're able to compare it to what's being proposed by the governor versus what the legislature is proposing, where the opportunities are to speak to the legislature and advocate for aspects of that. They are just extremely good and detailed at that, and that's critical work if we're going to have real voices in that public policy arena on children's issues.
Mike, would you mind telling us a little bit about where we are as a state today on working on matters involving abuse and prevention? Because there are certainly policy and budget implications, but why is this important to us today? Have we not been able, where is Michigan in terms of the great needs and challenges that they're facing, and why is it important to have an independent voice who can champion some of the causes to provide prevention services and intervention services? What is the state of Michigan today in these areas in child welfare?
Well, I have to think about that a little bit.
That was a little long-winded.
Yeah.
Sorry about
Yeah.
that.
Let me think if I can just think of a way to go at that. You know, when I think of the child welfare system and where we are in the state of Michigan, we have, over the years, we've seen real progress in areas of again, permanency planning. Really the Department of Health and Human Services has done, in concert with the legislature, has done some really quality work in the past few years, you know, partially as a result of a lawsuit that we've had here. But we've got more protective services workers, we have more attention to foster care. There are strategies like the My Team efforts where families are brought in together into the case planning process at the community level, and all those are real advances and steps forward. I think the challenge that we have is that it remains tremendously difficult to have that full continuum of high quality, timely services. And that means money, and it's always a struggle to have the resources that you need to do everything that needs to get done in a high quality way. And so because of that, again, Michigan's Children has been involved in those conversations. They've been involved in the push for better kind of quality strategies in child welfare. But they've also been a voice to say, look, you know, if we're really going to do this in a quality way, we need to put the resources on the table to make it happen.
Why is it important to have an independent voice in these areas? And how does that carry over with legislators and policymakers? How do they listen to Michigan's Children?
I think it's absolutely critical to have the independent voice that Michigan's Children is. I mean, there are a whole variety of organizations that have knowledge on child welfare and child care and juvenile justice. Many of those organizations have some connection to the system in some way, shape, or form. And so while they can be very knowledgeable and good advocates on some aspects, it is a challenge for them to be truly independent at all times. And because Michigan's Children is not connected in any way really with the system like that, they can be an independent voice, and they can take their concerns and the community concerns that they hear from the needs assessments that they do and a variety of other things to be that independent advocacy voice. And I think that's absolutely critical.
Okay, thank you. Mike, is there anything I didn't ask you that you'd like to bring up?
No, I think there's probably enough sound bites there for you.
So there's plenty. What do you think, Lauren?
Yeah.
Think so? Okay.
One other thing, I don't know if it fitted there, would be to congratulate Denise Illich as your honoree, or
Yeah, let's do it.
yeah.
Let's do it. We could, if we end up putting your interview right before May.
This opportunity as well on the. Wait, stop. What is it called? Heroes Night. Heroes Night.
It's called Heroes Night, and
Yeah.
she's the Heroes Night honoree.
Yeah.
Is the title.
And I'd just like to take this opportunity as well to congratulate Denise Illich, who I understand is the honoree for this Heroes Night. An honor well deserved from everything I hear about Denise's commitment to children and families in Michigan. So congratulations.
Thank you. Did we talk enough about the Yes, we started out talking about
Yeah.
our co-chapter
Yeah,
leadership. Good,
yep.
good. I think that's good.
Okay.
All right, thank you.
As the board chair of Michigan's Children, I am really excited to welcome everyone here today and to honor Denise Illich, who is a real champion for children. I, at the Skillman Foundation, have known Denise Illich for a long time. She sits on our board of trustees, and she is a tireless advocate for our most vulnerable kids, not just in Detroit, but across the state. She cares deeply about education, health, and welfare of all kids. And it is really exciting to have her here at our Heroes Night to be able to honor her, and in particular to honor her alongside Congresswoman Dingell, who is a champion for kids in her own right, has been a big part of Michigan's children's history and our direction. These two wonderful women are champions for kids, and we are very excited to have them both and to be able to honor them both tonight.
Great, thank you. Now I'm going to really segue and talk a little bit about your, why it's so important for you to help drive the direction of Michigan's children today.
Okay. Michigan's Children has been an incredible part of Michigan's history. I have worked with this organization for 20 years. Early in my career, I did a lot of work in early childhood, spent a lot of time working with the legislature, the state government, and advocacy organizations building systems for kids. At every turn, Michigan's Children was there, raising the voices of what was important for kids, but being able to articulate what the world was like for the most vulnerable kids in Michigan. I can honestly say that some of the major pieces of public policy and the big systems we have in Michigan that are doing great things for kids would not be here today if it weren't for this organization. We see through events like Kids Speak and Family Speak, where real kids, real families are able to talk about their experiences. There is simply no other organization in the state that is able to translate those experiences in an organic way, in an authentic way that public policymakers can understand and then be able to put that into practice through legislation and other forms of public policy. It is a really important organization. It stands with 20 years of history behind it, making substantive change for kids. And I am deeply honored to be able to serve as on their board of directors and be able to be a part of that great organization.
Thank you. Do you think we need some kind of segue between the two? Or will that happen organically, do you think?
It'll be fine.
It'll be fine? Because you can do like one of those screen things where the soft change.
Did that?
So that
Okay, ready to begin whenever you are.
For the last 3 decades, Michigan's Children has been an important voice and often the only voice for kids in the public policy realm in Michigan. Through events like Kids Speak and Family Speak, they are able to put voices of real kids and families at the forefront of conversation that in the public policy space and be able to allow policymakers to understand how changes that they make and the proposals that they're making are really affecting kids, in particular our most vulnerable kids. The reality is that there are a lot of kids in Michigan that aren't doing so well right now. We have some deep challenges, particularly for our most vulnerable kids living in our poorest communities. Michigan Children stands in a space that actually connects those families, those children to policymakers in an attempt to make positive change in their lives. It's really important that we have champions at the Capitol that are advocating for this, and it's also important that we have champions across the community. It is incredibly appropriate that right now we are honoring someone like Denise Illich as one of those champions who is always willing to walk the tough road and stand for children even when it's not the most popular thing to do. I have seen her advocate in a space about our most vulnerable kids, particularly in Detroit, in a way that causes folks to stand up and listen, and it is really appropriate that she's here today as one of our champions and stands with Michigan's Children in this very important fight. Better?
I like that.
Okay.
I like that a lot. You're welcome.
If you want to just try that one more time.
All right.
Sure.
Go ahead.
Good afternoon. I'm Scott Dezerka, President CEO of the Michigan Association of United Ways. Michigan Association of United Ways represents the 57 United Ways across the entire state of Michigan, encompassing every zip code in every county across our state.
Okay.
That's good.
Scott, you can lean into what you're
what Michigan's Children is, huh?
Yeah, tell us about how important it's been to work with us, what we've been with Michigan's Children, what's been the value add that Michigan's Children has been able to bring to issues that we've collaborated on with United Ways.
Well, you know, I'm fortunate I've had a great experience with Michigan's Children over the years, not only in this position within United Ways, but across the advocacy community within Lansing. The thing I appreciate about Michigan's Children is they are the only organization that I have encountered across the entire advocacy community that exclusively represents children. Now, don't get me wrong, there's a lot of organizations that represent programs, or even organizations like myself that definitely has a keen interest on children's issues. But it's Michigan's Children that is the only one that's out there effectively advocating on behalf of children day in and day out.
Could you please explain to us about that continuum of, not continuum of care, but that was such a good explanation.
You know, whether it's been early childhood, whether it's been after school, whether it's been parenting programs, whether it's been our challenges in the foster care system, Michigan's Children's voice has come across to Lansing decision makers time and time again. They have a strong team that I have a fortunate ability to work with every day, whether it's Matt, whether it's Mina, whether it's Michelle. I get a chance to work with their level of expertise, not only bringing relevant information to the conversation, but bringing a strong advocacy voice for Michigan's children.
Thank you. And Scott, could we go back a couple of years? We worked very closely with you in United Ways to advocate and promote the need for the expansion of the state's Great Start Readiness Program.
Yeah.
Could you kind of illustrate to us what happened on the ground in terms of, you know, what happened on the ground to make that occur, and what efforts can be illustrated from the Michigan's Children's side about making that happen?
Sure.
Thank you.
United Ways have always had a high level of interest in early childhood education. Michigan's Children led the charge in a collaborative fashion, bringing together key organizations that also had that interest. We were fortunate that having them at the helm in collaboration with all the community partners really helped us leverage all of our expertise to get a great win for Michigan's children, especially those that are encompassing the Great Start Readiness programs, having their first opportunity to encounter a preschool for their first time. It was thanks to their efforts and being in that leadership role to bring all of us together to get a great win for our programming across the state.
Would you mind, Scott, again, kind of restating, because they're not going to hear my voice.
No, I know, you're going to.
Restating that together with United Ways and others, Michigan's Children help bring attention and then change to funding for the Great Start Readiness Program, and who that impacted the parents of 4-year-olds, particularly those.
So you just want me to really do that again? Is that what you're
exactly.
saying?
Just identifying GSRP at the very start, so that when we get to that section, it'll be understood.
Gotcha. United Ways have always had an interest in early childhood programming. More recently, we've had a great interest in encompassing, let me start again. United Ways have always had an interest in early childhood programming. In Michigan, the start of the Great Start Readiness Program really looked to us as an opportunity to further and advance our work for pre-K children and give those children their first shot at a preschool education. Under the leadership of Michigan's Children, in collaboration with several Lansing organizations, we were able to achieve that in recent years. But it was thanks to Michigan's Children and their advocacy lead and their voice, and being a strong collaborative partner, not only for United Way, but for all those Lansing organizations, we were able to get significant resources back into Michigan's system.
Thank you. And Scott, United Ways have been at the forefront of helping to support local expanded after-school programs, before and after-school programs and summer programs in Michigan, particularly where they could do the most good. and working with all children, especially those in vulnerable areas. So how could you tell us a little bit about the work that you've done with Michigan's Children to help bring awareness to the need for expanded learning in Michigan?
Yeah.
Thank you.
There's a lot of needs that Michigan's children and families need day in and day out. We've been fortunate through the Great Start collaborative work to really set a benchmark for our early childhood work. Our next venture is after school programming. And with the collaboration of Michigan's Children through the Michigan After School Partnership, we think we can achieve just that potential. We're really looking at out-of-school time programming now. The number of hours that children spend in school is significant, but even more significant are the 18 hours out of school. We need to utilize and capture those hours for children and make them strong supports of our education network across the state. Not only helping education, but helping parents every day who are hardworking individuals that are employed working several jobs who may not have adequate care day in, day out around the school time. Michigan's Children is there to help us build out of school time programming. Let me say that again. Michigan's Children is there to help us with out of time school programming so that those children can have adequate resources outside of the classroom and help parents work day in and day out to achieve a stable financial screwed it up. I thought I was on a roll there.
We're on a roll.
I was.
Yeah. So
All right,
what's
I'll do it
happening
again.
in terms of after school
I'll-
and the Michigan After School Partnership?
I'll hit it again.
Yeah.
No, we'll do a couple takes. Building on our success of the Great Start Readiness Program and the level of success we're able to achieve with Michigan's Children, I really see our next opportunity being after-school programming, or also known as out-of-school time programming. In collaboration with Michigan's Children and the Michigan After School Partnerships, I think in the future we can achieve that. So many families across the state of Michigan, hardworking families, are having a challenge with quality care outside of the school time that most of our children encounter every day. We are looking at the 18 hours of time that children spend out of the classroom each day and making sure that there's quality education and care programming that is afforded those children and their parents. Through the collaborative efforts of Michigan's Children, we feel that we can build a stronger out-of-school time continuum around the year.
Awesome.
Okay.
You nailed it.
Okay.
You nailed it.
All
That
right.
last part was great. And then his opener where he identifies himself and just that.
Okay. Okay. So we're going to hit the United Way. All right. And then talk about the importance of Michigan's Children.
Actually, that part was good. I just meant the little intro, just the
Okay.
short little intro saying what your title is and that you represent these 57 counties,
Okay.
57 United Ways in
Okay.
every county in Michigan.
So that's it.
That's it.
All right, good. Scott DeZerka, President, CEO of the Michigan Association of United Ways. My organization represents 57 United Ways across the state of Michigan, encompassing every zip code and every county across our vast state.
Right, that's it. And then what?